Welcome to the deep dive, where we take on the questions that most people, well, that they tend to avoid. Today we're wrestling with something really, existential. Why witness what you cannot change? It's maybe the most fundamental challenge to meaning we face.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And the beauty of our source material for this deep dive is that it doesn't just offer some, philosophical treatise. Instead, what it does is it gives us this intense, integrated examination through the testimonies of 8 individuals whose professional lives really require them to attend to the unbearable.
The professional witnesses.
Exactly. A war photographer, a public defender, a climate scientist, a hospice nurse, an archivist, people on the front lines of difficult truths.
So our mission here is to take their collective answers, these really hard-won nuggets of truth, and synthesize them. We're looking for the cumulative answer, the true staggering cost, the ultimate meaning, and crucially, the deep necessity of showing up for a reality that just seems designed to crush you.
The source material captures this perfectly. It calls the central tension the unbearable necessity.
The unbearable necessity. I like that.
And we have to start with the cost, I
Yeah.
think, because that's where the temptation for self-protection really begins.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's start with Lucia, a veteran war photographer. When she first went into conflict zones, she realized that to survive, she just couldn't process the reality in front of her. So she developed a mechanism. She called it becoming the camera.
Right. She mastered what the sources define as mechanical witnessing.
Mechanical witnessing.
Yeah, and this was a conscious, almost technical choice. To photograph dead children and, mothers screaming in agony, she had to focus entirely on the machine.
The technical side of it.
The technical side.
Yeah.
Aperture settings, exposure times, achieving the perfect composition.
Mm-hmm.
She told herself, and the sources record this, that she was just a device, not a human, just recording data. And that detachment, it prevented her from shaking, from vomiting, from collapsing.
Which sounds absolutely necessary, if horrific. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're there to document something, how else do you prevent yourself from becoming a casualty of the image itself?
And it works. For a while. But the cost was the loss of her humanity. She says she became not human. The sources explain that mechanical witnessing keeps you technically functional, but, spiritually bankrupt. You survive the trauma, but you don't survive whole.
So where was the breaking point? If she was so successful at walling off the macro tragedy, what finally brought the wall down?
It was intimacy. It wasn't some huge catastrophe that broke the mechanism. It was allowing herself to feel the private, specific grief of a single mother grieving her child. The moment she went from just documenting to genuine human presence, the whole system failed. She realized her act felt like a violation, that she was sacrificing her own soul, her own capacity to feel, just to record someone else's suffering. The lens wasn't just for focus, it was a shield. And when she lowered it, she was unprotected.
That sets up the perfect crucible for testing this idea. If Lucia's mechanism was self-destruction through detachment, how did anyone bear witness to destruction with total presence without being completely flattened?
That's where David's testimony comes in. And it's such a powerful counterpoint. David was the primary caregiver for his wife, Helen, for 5 years after she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. His witnessing was, you can argue, even more prolonged and intimate than Lucia's.
His story is just gut-wrenching. He watched her disappear in slow motion. The sources say she eventually didn't even recognize him. She would greet him every morning with the same formal politeness you'd offer a kind stranger.
And this is the profound contrast to mechanical witnessing. David saw his choice to stay, to attend to her, as the highest form of love and devotion. The reality was emotionally destructive. I mean, his most beloved person saw him as a helpful ghost. Yet he chose total, unblinking presence.
The source notes say his choice required attending even when attending costs everything.
Exactly.
So the cost was total emotional devastation, but the refusal to leave, that radical act of just being there, that was his definition of devotion. It's almost a spiritual exercise, isn't it? Showing up for something even when it actively refuses to acknowledge you're there?
It is. And his witnessing, it didn't save her from the disease, but it preserved her existence. His eventual act of writing about Helen, detailing her decline, her specific moments of joy and confusion, it meant that even though she forgot herself, her story, her humanity was preserved. It was saved from the oblivion of the disease.
So love is witnessing made active.
Yes, through presence, despite pain. And the focus shifts, you see. It shifts from preventing the destruction to honoring what is being destroyed.
Which takes us right into the core purpose of this whole deep dive. If David's presence couldn't cure Helen and Lucia's photos couldn't bring the children back, then from a practical, utilitarian standpoint, why bother? What's the function of this presence if it doesn't change the outcome?
We have to shift the perspective entirely. From the burden on the witness to the need of the witness. And Mark,
Yeah.
as the public defender, he lived entirely in that utilitarian space. He felt useless every single day.
He admitted to feeling like his work was, and I'm quoting here, useless fucking witnessing, because he was just constantly watching the legal system crush his clients, and he couldn't stop it.
He gives these heartbreaking examples. Jamal, who had to accept a 15-year plea for a minor charge because going to trial meant risking life in prison.
Or the innocent client who died in jail from medical neglect while Marcus was fighting to get him out.
Right. He was present for the destruction, but he felt powerless to prevent it. He felt his presence was just adding this veneer of dignity to a machine of injustice.
But wait, if Jamal still got 15 years and the innocent client still died, isn't that just spiritual window dressing? Did Marcus's presence actually change anything practical for them?
That's the critical question.
Yeah.
And his aha moment, it didn't come from a legal victory. It came from an interaction with Jamal right after he took the plea. Jamal knew his life was over, basically, but he looked at Marcus, and his eyes just conveyed this profound gratitude simply for Marcus being here.
For seeing him, not just processing him.
Yes, exactly. The key takeaway from Marcus's story is that being witnessed matters, even if witnessing doesn't save the outcome. In the face of a system designed to dehumanize you, to erase you, just the presence of one human being who sees your destruction, who validates your reality, is an act of honoring your humanity. It gives meaning to the person being destroyed.
That's a powerful psychological truth, but it must be incredibly difficult to apply that to something non-human, like the environment. And we see a fascinating parallel with Kaito, the climate scientist.
Or he spent years measuring a dying glacier. He was releasing the data, but he felt totally helpless. He published the science, but as he said, nobody listens.
He was just documenting an ending he couldn't stop.
Exactly, and he was wrestling with the meaninglessness of it all. He needed a purpose for his presence, beyond just the data points.
And he found it in an intensely personal place, with his 8-year-old daughter, Yuki, while she was fighting cancer.
He did. When Yuki was sick and terrified, going through chemo, Kaito was just there, always present. And Yuki told him that his consistent witnessing of her fight mattered. It helped her survive because she didn't have to bear it alone. It was this profound lesson in the power of just sustained presence.
So he took that deeply personal truth, that presence is strength, even when you can't cure the disease, and he applied it to the glacier.
He did. He concluded that dying things need witnesses. The glacier, like his daughter, needed him to see its end, to honor its life by precisely measuring its departure. The purpose shifted from saving the ice to validating its existence and its death. He didn't stop its end, but he gave its end meaning.
So we've established the purpose is about honoring the witnessed. But what about the cost to the witness? If you accept this job, how do you sustain yourself? Does the witness just constantly break?
That question leads directly to Nora, the hospice nurse, who attends to death daily. And she offers what might be the highest synthesis of all 8 testimonies. She utterly rejects Lucia's idea of mechanical witnessing.
Her central insight is maybe the most difficult one to accept. She says, being changed is the point.
Yes. She understands that if she remains unchanged by the death she witnesses, she has fundamentally failed. She doesn't try to maintain some professional distance that keeps her whole. In fact, she says, chillingly, that she carries over 460 people inside her, each one changing her, transforming her soul.
But how is that sustainable? I mean, if she carries 460 people inside her, doesn't that become an overwhelming burden? Doesn't that lead to immediate burnout?
She sees it differently. She argues that the cost is the work. Her transformation, the permanent marking she carries, is the definition of her sacred work. She's a living archive. She doesn't seek to survive unchanged. She seeks to become a vessel for the lives she has touched. Allowing herself to be marked is her way of honoring them. That constant internal transformation is what keeps her human.
That idea of becoming a living archive is the perfect bridge to resistance, isn't it? If you can't save the victim or stop the process, you can make sure the memory survives.
And this is Elena's fight. Elena, an archivist, fighting against deliberate erasure. Specifically, a hostile government trying to destroy physical records, documenting state violence, and that disappeared.
She was literally in a race against time.
A deadly one. The sources detail this frantic last-minute effort. They knew the trucks were coming to seize and destroy the boxes, so Elena's resistance was highly strategic. digital preservation. She and her colleagues worked through the night, just copying hundreds of critical testimonies, like Gabriella's account of her disappeared son.
So they preserved the information, but that wasn't the end of it, was it?
Not at all. Because merely preserving it on a secret server wasn't enough. The government could still find and destroy that. Elena understood that memory survives erasure through witnessing, and witnessing requires visibility. So the crucial step was making the testimony public, getting it out of the files and into the hands of journalists like Thomas.
The ultimate resilience, then, is to distribute the memory so widely it can never be centralized and destroyed.
Exactly. It moved from controlled state files to the living memory of millions of people. It became too big to erase.
That visibility is a powerful defense, but it highlights another massive problem: burnout. Which brings us to Maya, the social worker. She was struggling with this deeply. She's providing heroic help to individuals, like a girl named Keisha, whose mother was deported. But she felt defeated watching these immense, indifferent systems destroy thousands.
That individual witnessing, while necessary for Keisha, was threatening to destroy Maya. So her solution for survival was an organizational one: collective witnessing. She joined what was called a witnesses meeting, a group of public defenders, doctors, other social workers, all dealing with the same systemic destruction.
It sounds like a support group, but was it more than just sharing the burden? Did it have a practical solution?
Oh, it was far more than venting. It was a mechanism for converting individual despair into collective power. The individual stories she helped with, like Keisha's, they became tangible, anonymized evidence shared within the group. That shared testimony, when compiled, created a comprehensive public report detailing systemic failures.
So it functions on two levels. First, it shares the unbearable weight, which makes the work possible for the individual.
And second, it converts that individual suffering into collective data.
Data that could actually exert pressure on the system.
Precisely. The source makes it clear. Witnessing together makes witnessing possible. And individual accounts, when pooled, they become collective evidence that creates pressure for systemic change. It addresses both the humanitarian and the political cost.
The power of that public visibility, that chain reaction. That's what Thomas, the investigative journalist, finally grasped. He was initially very cynical. He believed exposing injustice rarely, if ever, changed the massive systems he wrote about.
And he learned his lesson directly from Elena. She was arrested shortly after he published her story about the archive. And Thomas felt this profound guilt that his journalism had put her in danger without actually changing anything.
He exposed the injustice, but the government still arrested the Shiro. How did he resolve that?
Elena taught him. His work mattered because it changed people. His article didn't stop the government on day one, but thousands of readers became witnesses. One of them, a woman named Rosa, read Gabriella's testimony about her son and immediately felt compelled to protest. Thomas's story became a catalyst.
It's the ultimate ripple effect. The act of witnessing itself is infectious.
It is. Thomas realized his job wasn't to change the system directly. It was to make others witness, which changed them, and changed people, changed systems. His story led directly to a massive public movement that secured Elena's release from jail. It was a chain of effect. The power lies in distributing the burden and the memory.
This synthesized answer we've developed is just so integrated and powerful. It starts with Lucia sacrificing her humanity to avoid the cost. And it concludes with Nora teaching us that the cost, the transformation, the permanent marking, that is the entire point.
Absolutely. The 8 answers are unified. You don't witness to stay the same. You witness to be changed, transformed, and marked. That transformation is the meaning. David showed that his testimony kept his wife's existence alive. Marcus learned that presence honors humanity even when you can't save the body.
It's the highest form of devotion to reality itself. Witnessing what you cannot change creates meaning, not by saving the external circumstances, but by keeping the witnessed alive forever through memory, and by fundamentally changing the witness themselves.
The cost is high, but the purpose is profound. The collective truth from every testimony is distilled into that single powerful line. We witness what we cannot change, because witnessing is how we love what we cannot save. It fundamentally reframes what we even think of as successful action.
That is a staggering conclusion. It really challenges the utilitarian mindset that dominates so much of what we do. So we leave you with the question these 8 witnesses ultimately had to answer. What personal costs are you currently avoiding by refusing to fully witness the hard truths in your own life or in the world? What profound transformation are you sacrificing for the sake of staying unchanged? That's the work that remains after the deep dive.